Hi everyone. It says we were in a practice session. Is that just because we haven't hit that 1 o'clock mark?
No, I can start the webinar whenever. If we want to start it now so we can get people in, actually, that probably would be.
Oh yeah, if we can't admit people until then, yeah.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
super quick question before we start from the legislature. We did not get any new monies from the legislature in the last legislative session to uh, for grants this year. So we had some extended monies from previous years. I would just suggest, and we put this in the letter, that if you can talk to your local legislators or people you know who might have influence in the roundhouse, and say, let them know how important you find these programs, the programs that we fund, and that you would very much encourage the legislature in the next legislative session to give the Sentencing Commission an appropriate appropriation for grants so we can disperse more grants next year. Program's been growing from strength to strength since we started it in 2019, I believe. But we need the money to support it, and you all will be great voices for that. We are working on our end to streamline the reimbursement process. Those of you who've been grantees before know that there's been some hiccups in that, particularly this year seems to have been a lot of hiccups. We are working on that on our end. And we hope that you will work with us as well on your end. If your packages come in right, there'll be a lot of discussion of the right order to put things in, then things will go more smoothly. I will mention here and mention again at the end, this orientation will be posted on our website, the Sentencing Commission website, which is nmsc.unm.edu. So it will be available there as a resource. The slides that you're going to see in the subsequent presentations will also be posted as a resource, and we have other how-to videos and items like that on our website. If you go to a website, look for the tab that says Crime Reduction Grants, and then program, I believe it says Program Resources. Lots of useful material there that you can consult throughout the year. We will update it with new slides, this video, etc., as the occasion requires. So with that, once again, thanks for attending. Congratulations on your grants. They all look really interesting. We're really looking forward to working with you on them over the course of the coming year. And I will pass things over to Kiri to discuss apply.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Douglas.
Kiri.
Hello everyone. I hope everyone can see me and hear me. I'm going to be sharing my screen here and I'll go ahead and get started. So can everyone see that? Somebody give me a thumbs up. All right. So thank you for coming today. Welcome to our orientation for fiscal year 2026. Let's see. For the visual learners amongst us, here is a list of today's presentations. And like Douglas said, you will be receiving all of these slides. They'll be posted on our website and we will be emailing them to you as well. So you don't need to take notes unless you really want to. So I will be going over using Apply, which is our grant management software, as well as our monthly invoices and reporting requirements for your grant. So one other housekeeping note before I really dive into the content here. You'll be hearing us talk about grant liaisons throughout our presentations today, and each grant is assigned a member of our staff to serve as its grant liaison. Your grant liaison is your primary point of contact at the Sentencing Commission, and that is the person who will know your project the best. They're going to be the person who reviews your monthly invoices and approves those, who reads your quarterly reports, and they are intended to serve as a resource for you. They should be your first call if you have any questions or if we can help you with anything. And your grant liaisons will be reaching out to you soon via email to introduce themselves. So without further ado, I am going to be covering using Apply, which is our grant management software and should be familiar to you if you filled out the application for your grant program. So apply refers to SurveyMonkey Apply, and here's the address to it, although again, you will be receiving these slides in your email and they'll be available online. This is our grant management software, and this is where you will find all of your application materials that you submitted, as well as the monthly invoice materials for you to fill out for your reimbursement request each month. You'll be able to access materials you've already submitted to us. And this is also where you will be submitting your quarterly and final reports. So when you log into Apply, this is what you see. This is your project dashboard, and you can always navigate back to this page from anywhere in Apply by clicking on My Applications on the top right. And you may see more than one grant or application here, depending on whether you've had grants in the past or if you've submitted applications before. So to make sure that you're opening the correct grant, you can look at the project year, should say Crime Reduction Grants Fiscal Year 26, the title and the grant number as well to confirm that you're picking the correct one, the grant from this year. This year, the grant number, if you've had grants in the past, you may remember that your grant number was different from the number that was on your application. Created a lot of confusion for everyone. This year, those numbers match. So if this is your first year having a grant, then you don't need to worry about anything. And if this is not your first year having a grant, then you also don't need to worry about anything, but that'll be new to you. So when you are ready to open your grant and access your assigned tasks and or your previous materials, you click on Start or Continue down here, the green button, and then you will see this. This is what it looks like when your grant is open in Apply. This is where you access your grant materials and your assigned tasks. So you can see here your assigned tasks, and these are for July of 2025. We'll go over these in a little bit, but if you scroll down the page, you'll also see your previous tasks. And so from the get-go here, what you'll see down here are your application materials. But as the year continues, you'll see your previous monthly invoices, everything that you've submitted so far. So it'll have quarterly reports, everything you'll be able to access there and open that up and see what you have submitted. Your IGA is also there if you need to open that up to access your scope of work or anything else. That's also there in the previous task. So you can see on this screen where you have a list here that'll have the owner of the grant as well as any collaborators you've added, and you see a button for adding collaborators. So if you need to add a collaborator, that's where you do it. You click on the Add Collaborator button, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. We strongly encourage you to add everyone who will be working on your grant project as a collaborator in Apply. They'll be able to view, edit, and complete tasks there if you give them those permissions. They won't be able to submit anything. Only the owner of the grant can submit and Apply, and we'll talk about that in just a second as well. But we use Apply to send out all sorts of notifications and reminders. And so it is very important that anybody who's working on your grant who you want to receive those notifications is added as a collaborator in Apply so that when we send things through Apply, they go out to all of your collaborators as well. So if you click on the Add Collaborator button, you get this little pop-up where you put in their email address. You determine what type of access you want them to have, if you want them to only be able to view the materials, or if you want them to also be able to edit things, to upload the materials. And then you send them the invite, and they do need to be able to accept that email invitation to be added to the grant and Apply. That is the only way to add a collaborator. So if they don't see the email invitation in their inbox, please have them check their spam folder, get in touch with us if they don't see it. And we can troubleshoot from there, but we don't have another way to add collaborators and Apply. It is only through that email invitation process. So to talk a little bit more about how only the owner of a grant and apply can submit materials. That includes the monthly invoices, the quarterly reports, the final report. That submit button, let's see, that green submit button, that only appears for the owner of the grant. For collaborators, that button will always appear kind of grayed out. It'll be non-functional. So only the owner can submit that, and only one person can be the owner. That's just how things are set up in Apply. It's nothing that we can change. Trust us, we wish we could change that. We know that that's inconvenient for many of our grantees, but that is what it is. So the owner of your grant is the person who submitted the application. That's the default, but you can change that, and you can change that at any time. So how to change that? Actually, hang on. Let's talk real quick about who should be the owner of your grant and apply. So it starts off as the person who submitted the application. And it is up to you who you want to be the owner of your grant, but we strongly recommend making the owner of the grant the fiscal contact, because they are the person who's going to be submitting those monthly invoices, which means that they're going to have the most time using Apply. They're going to be submitting the most materials in Apply. If you have one person who is filling out the monthly invoice and then another person who has to log in to apply and submit it because they're the owner, that tends to cause delays. We understand there are many reasons grantees set their grant up that way. Sometimes when the owner is a supervisor and is not filling out the materials but wants to review them before they're submitted, we understand that, but we're going to let you know that tends to be something that causes delays for grantees. And when those materials are submitted late, that contributes to reimbursements being late as well. So we do strongly encourage you make the fiscal contact the owner of the grant and apply. But again, it's up to you. So if you need to change the owner of your grant, this is how you do it. So when you're looking at your grant and apply, you see that list of collaborators on the left side. You click on those three little dots next to the name of the collaborator who you would like to be the owner. And when you click on that, you see a little drop-down menu, and you click on Make Owner, and that's it. There's no confirmation. The change is just effective immediately. And you can do that as many times as you want, however you want to manage your grant. So that brings us to the monthly invoice requirements, and how to submit those in Apply. I'm going to be giving you just kind of a quick overview, and then Jamie Cook will go over that in more detail in her portion of the presentation today. So your monthly invoices are due on the 15th of the following month. And so, in other words, your July invoice will be due on Friday, August 15th. Your August invoice will be due on Monday, September 15th. And so on. If the 15th of the month happens to fall on a holiday or on a weekend, then the invoice will be due on the first business day following the 15th. We do try to send out reminders every month about the invoices being due. However, we would like you to not rely on our reminders. If for whatever reason they don't go out, the invoice is still due. And so we do ask that you add the monthly invoice date to your calendar. Sometimes reminders end up in people's spam folders, and those invoices are still due. You do need to submit an invoice each month, even if you had no expenses that month. So you would just submit a $0 reimbursement request. This helps us to make sure that our records are complete, make sure that we're not missing any payments to you, and make sure that you are not accumulating expenses that you have not submitted to us yet, which kind of jams us up. So the monthly invoices you saw in Apply just a few minutes ago. There are four components. First, there's the monthly reimbursement request form, which is just built into Apply, and it's a pretty quick form where you fill out the amount you're requesting and your payment information. And that gets submitted every month, even if you have a $0 request. The next component is the cover letter. And you'll notice that in apply, this is marked as optional. That's because it is not required for $0 requests. And there are instructions as well in apply for each of these. So what is required for the cover letter is there, and I think Jamie's going to go over that in more detail as well. The next component is the Excel workbook. We supply a template for this, and this needs to be submitted every month. So even if you have a $0 request, you update it to show that you had a $0 request this month, and then you upload it. And then the last component is the supporting documentation for your expenses. This is also marked as optional in apply, and that's only because we don't need it for $0 requests because there's no backup documentation for a $0 request. So if you have a $0 request, you should be submitting the monthly reimbursement request form and the Excel workbook. And if you have a request for any dollar amount other than 0, you should be submitting all 4 components every month. The quarterly reports and your updated spending plans will be assigned as tasks in apply with the monthly invoice when those are due. So we'll go over that as well. Jamie's going to go over most of this information in more detail, but I just wanted to take a moment to highlight the supporting documentation that you are submitting in apply. This is one of the main hiccups that we run into with grantees for reimbursement requests. And so we just wanted to reiterate it probably maybe too many times today, but it's really important. We want to get you all paid on time, and we know that you want to get paid on time. So just to really hammer it home, payroll expenses, payroll records are sufficient. For all other expenses, you must submit an invoice, purchase order, and proof of payment for each expense. And we want that backup documentation to be in that order. Okay, so again, we're going to reiterate this a couple of times. Jamie will go over it in more detail. But this is probably the most important thing that we'll be going over today is that supporting documentation for your reimbursement requests. So the monthly invoice cycle in apply is first you complete your invoice and you submit it, and then it pops up on our end. We get an email notification, and your grant liaison and our finance team will review the invoice. Once we determine that everything is correct, we approve it, and then your reimbursement request is processed and the next monthly invoice becomes available in apply. So if something is missing, then we send it back to you and the cycle kind of starts over again where you fill in what's missing and resubmit, we re-review, and so on. And so you can see from the invoice cycle, the monthly invoice materials are only available 1 month at a time in apply. There are reasons that we like that, but also we just don't have the ability to open more than 1 month at a time. So the reason that we like that is because it gives us a chance to catch and correct errors in submittals before they're repeated the next month. Which just, it helps you as much as it helps us because that way you don't end up needing to redo a bunch of your invoices. We catch errors right away. It streamlines the process in the future. This also helps us to keep our records organized, and it makes sure that all of the files for your grant are accessible to everyone on our team who needs to access them, from your grant liaison to our finance team. So everybody has access to the same files. So that means that it is incredibly important that you submit each month's invoice in a timely manner. Because of that cycle, it takes time to catch up if you get behind. So if you're a few months behind, it's just going to take time to submit those, have us review them, have us approve them, and then the next month becomes available. You can't submit them all at once. We just don't have the ability to even allow you to do that. Sometimes we get grantees who tell us, hey, I've got all of these invoices that I was running behind on, and I can't submit them all at once and apply, and so I've emailed them to you. Please don't do that. That does make it a lot harder for us to keep track of those materials. And then again, it's difficult for everyone who needs access to them to access them because they're sitting in one person's inbox. So please submit materials only in apply, and in a timely manner. So that brings us to the quarterly and final report requirements in apply. So these requirements are all statutory. They come from Section 31284C of NMSA 1978. So the Crime Reduction Grant Act requires that you evaluate quarterly the process, outputs, outcomes, and other performance measures of programs funded with grants for compliance with all provisions of the Crime Reduction Grant Act, provide a quarterly report to the Sentencing Commission, and provide an annual report to the Sentencing Commission. And these three requirements are satisfied through our quarterly and final reporting process. These forms will be available in Apply and will be submitted with the monthly invoice. That's for the quarterly reports. Those are due October 15th, January 15th, and April 15th, with the invoices, the monthly invoices that are due on those dates. The final report is due by October 1st. So let's see. You can see here they will be available with your assigned tasks in Apply when they are due. And this is the quarterly report form. So some fields in the quarterly reports will autofill with information that you provided in your application. And if that information is out of date or you need to change it for any reason, we do provide a text box here where you can make corrections if necessary. So the questions in the quarterly reports, this is one of the most frequent questions that we get. People want to know what kind of questions they'll need to answer in the reports. It's very straightforward. These will be available on our website, and they're also obviously here in the slides, which will be made available to you. But here are the questions. We want to know how much money you've spent to date. That should match our records, but it's just another check and balance. We also ask you to provide a summary of the project's current status, to describe any barriers or difficulties your project is experiencing and whether we can provide any assistance to you. We do ask you to upload your updated spending plan. Nancy is going to go over the spending plan later in this presentation. And we do provide a place for you to upload any additional supporting documents that you want to share with us. That is not where you upload the data for your project. Please do not submit any data there that contains any personally identifying information. We have a secure portal where you can upload that instead, but this is just maybe you gave a presentation and you want to share it with us, or you have something else that you need to share with your quarterly report there. You can upload it. The final report form, similarly, will be available in your assigned tasks in Apply when that is due. That is due by October 1st for the preceding fiscal year. So for all of these grants, they end June 30th. Your final invoice will be due July 15th, and then your final report will be due by October 1st. That is 2026. That deadline is set by statute. We can't change the deadline or grant any kind of extensions to it. That just is what it is. I think you have time to plan ahead for that. And if there's anything that we can do to help you to be ready for that, just let us know. But these are the final report questions. And again, it's not a terribly detailed report. We ask you to describe the extent to which the project met its intended goals, to describe the strengths of the project, describe any difficulties you encountered. We ask what you've learned that you will share with your CJCC. And we do encourage you to please share that information with your CJCC. It is really helpful to others who are thinking of doing the same or similar projects. And then we also ask if the crime reduction funds were sufficient for your project, and if not, how that impacted your project. We ask if you have any suggestions for the crime reductions grant process in the future, if there's anything that we can do to improve. And then we provide you a file upload there as well. And again, please, no personally identifying information there. So if you need help at any point, your first call should be to your grant liaison. You could also reach out to us at nmsc@unm.edu. That goes to all of us, and you will hear back from at least one of us. Or also in Apply at the top right, you have a little I symbol with a drop-down menu if you click on it. If you click on the Contact the Site Administrator option, that just goes to us, just another roundabout way of getting in touch with us. But they do have a FAQ there for SurveyMonkey Apply, and you can get in touch with their help desk if you're having any technical issues. So these are help options that are available to you as well. And we have also put together an online help library on our site. You go to nmsc.unm.edu, click on Crime Reduction Grants at the top, scroll down to Resources for Grantees. The quarterly report and final report questions are there in PDF format. Those are for reference only since you do submit them in Apply. We also have how-to videos for our most requested tasks. These slides will be posted there. And there's just a bunch of information there for you. So I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We will have a Q&A immediately following this orientation. Thank you all.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie Cook, and I'm going to go over the finance portion of your grant. Can everybody see the screen?
I think
Okay.
everyone's muted, Jamie, but yeah, I think we can see it.
Okay, thank you, Douglas. Alrighty. So let's get started with the 4 components of the submission for each monthly submission for the grants. The monthly reimbursement request form, which I'm going to cover with you. It's an Excel worksheet, and oh no, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm having a day. It's Monday all over again. The monthly reimbursement request form is in Apply. We need a cover letter. Optional, not required for $0 requests. Kiri covered that earlier. That there may be some months where you don't actually have a request that is due, that you're not asking for any money. And so it is not required for the $0 requests. The Excel workbook is a must, even for $0 requests. And that is the one that we will send to you that tells what your grant is, has the budget amount, all of that. And then the supporting documentation for your expenses is optional, not required for $0 requests, but it is required for any funds that you are requesting for that month. So this is a suggested cover letter example. What we really want to see is your department letterhead, the date that you're submitting your request, an invoice number, preferably the grant number. So this would be 202606, say, and it would be nice to include maybe the month also. That can be the month that it's being requested. The reimbursement request number, the month of the request there also. the amount that you're requesting and what the reimbursement is for. Save the previous month's expenses, or you know, it just needs to cover what it is the request is for. If you are a unit that uses share, please include the business unit, the fund number, the department number, the BUDREF class code, and revenue code. If you're a county or a nonprofit, please include the name of the grant, and your business address where you would receive checks. So this is the Excel workbook that we're going to be sending you. And it's really a very nice addition to what we can give to you. Here you'll put the grantee name, not the name of the person requesting, but the name of the actual grant. The NMSC award number, which is the NMSC assigned number, which is the 2025-06 or whatever your number is. The total budget. So this is the year-to-date view right now. Also, any questions that you may have about the Excel workbook, there is a training video that is on our website in those resources that Carrie talked about. And so you can always go there to if you have any questions or just want to see how to complete this workbook. So the period of claim, which would on the year to date shows 7/25 through 6/26. It's got all the months. Now, please remember to remove these red reminders from the workbook when you enter your name, award number, and total budget. And also, please don't change any of the formulas that we have in there. It's easy for you. It's easy for us. The tabs that are in the workbook for the months where you will be requesting the funds will automatically feed into this year to date to help keep, you apprised and us apprised of what the total expenditures are and your remaining budget balance. If you end up getting an amendment, please change your workbook to whatever your amended balance is. So these are the monthly forms sheets that are in the workbook. And so it will feed automatically from the year to date, the grantee name and the award number. And then each month corresponds, the reimbursement request corresponds with the month that you are requesting. So your July 2025 request would be request number 1. January of 2026, it would show a request number 7 here. What you will be putting in this, and this shows the period of claim. So this first one, of course, is the July. In the scope of work reference, please put in this area, the statement of work item that comes directly from the IGA. So this one would show number 3A of the IGA, and then a description of the expense. And then this would come from 5C from the IGA and what the description of the expense is. It is important that each line item is tied directly to a particular subparagraph of the scope of work in the IGA. So this will total up down here, and then it will transfer automatically over into the year to date. So this is the amount pulled from the July 2025 tab, and this is the amount that it will increase each month with each subsequent request. And this shows the balance if this was $100,000 grant after that month's expenditures. So now with the reimbursement request, this is what we are asking for from you as the grantee for the documentation. The monthly reimbursement request form, which is in Apply, the cover letter, the reimbursement request workbook, that is a must, even with a $0 request. You have to turn that in at least. Supporting documentation for the reimbursement request. So we're going to go into if you're dealing with a vendor, you're purchasing something outside of the grant, we need to see the invoice, the purchase order, and the proof of payment. If you paid with a credit card statement, or something showing that the credit card was used to pay that vendor, a receipt of some sort. You can also use a DFA warrant or a DFA voucher if you've paid through the share, paid DFA. It must show the payment tab of the voucher entry if you want to use that as your proof of payment for a vendor. Wages, proof of payment, payroll register, or canceled checks. And it really needs to be in clear order. So if you have it listed in your Excel workbook, we want the documentation to follow what you have in that workbook. So if you list item 5A at $1,105, then whatever that portion of the workbook says that you are requesting reimbursement for, please have that be the first thing in your documentation that you give, so that it's easy for us to follow. It is easy when we turn it into DFA, turn it into the state for the reimbursement, they then can follow it easily also. Excuse me. So you would need in a clear order, vendor invoice received by, purchase order, proof of payment. That's the good order to have that in for that certain line. And excuse me, if you can't provide one of the elements that we request, there should be a clear explanation as to why. For example, charges made on a P card. Sometimes I know I don't ever get when I use my P card, I don't get the bank statements, the P card department does. So I would have to, I guess, or accounts payable. I don't even know where they go, honestly. And so I would have to contact them. But if you let us know that it was purchased on a P card, we'll accept that as the explanation as to why. This does not apply to reimbursements for payroll expenses. Of course, you won't have a purchase order for that. The proof of payroll expense covers both the vendor invoice portion and proof of payment, okay, for wages. And when you are requesting a $0 request in Apply, please enter that in Apply that it is a $0 request. Easy for us to follow, easy for you to follow. I'm trying to think if there's anything else before I go down to like documentation for held events and everything. Please emphasize that, okay, we ask that you only provide the documentation we request and nothing more. No quotes, no white papers, no correspondence between you and other people in the office or with the project. no data entry screenshots, pricing agreements, or other extra documentation. It's much harder for us to follow if we have all of that. We want what you would want to be able to prove that you've paid something. You know, we just don't need a lot of extraneous documentation. So if you're going to hold an event, what we need is an event flyer, receipts for purchases, possibly sign-in sheets, DFA vouchers showing the payment tab. Again, that's important. We have to see that you've paid for things. For client services, sign-in sheets. We need dates. If you can, please redact clients' names. No personally identifiable information, birth dates, that kind of thing. Invoices for the service that you provided to them, or DFA vouchers showing a payment tab. And again, it is critical that supporting documentation is organized in precisely the order laid out above for each category and follows the Excel workbook. So these are common finance hiccups: wrong month's receipts or invoices, no NMSC CRGA reimbursement request workbook included. That's a big one. Precise scope of work subparagraph not indicated on updated Excel spreadsheet. So please, those scope of work subparagraphs in the Excel spreadsheet are extremely important. Submissions, a lot of times missing documentation, submissions with supporting documentation in the wrong order. You'll have it on the Excel spreadsheet and there's nothing in there to back it up. And duplicates. We do see that a lot where people accidentally put in duplicates of what they have requested, which leads us to think that they're asking for twice as much money. But so please be careful not to include duplicates. The documentation doesn't balance with reimbursement request. If the amount requested is different, please put in an explanation as to why. Say it was a partial payment as opposed to a full payment. Because possibly there was another funding source for the payment. You only requested that the grant pay for 60% of the wages. And so remind us that you're paying 40% of the wages, that kind of thing. Transpose numbers. We all do that, but please try to, when you turn it in, please try to make sure that they aren't. And the workbook numbers don't match the request. So sometimes we'll get a request in apply, it'll say that it's $7,500, but then the workbook is showing that it's $12,000. So please try to make sure that the workbook numbers and the apply numbers, that they all match. And here again, excessive documentation. Be clear and concise. And what would you like to receive as documentation? So when entering into apply your monthly reimbursement request, this is this is when you go in, this is what you will click on, is the monthly reimbursement request. And this is this is where I got screwed up earlier, and I apologize. So you will fill in all of the the boxes that are indicated in red. So again, contract or IGA number, the reimbursement request number. Remember, the month of the request follows the fiscal year months. So from July of 25 to June of 26, July being the first month, August being the second, and so on. The date fills in automatically for you, which is nice. The payment information. So again, if you use share, please fill in the business unit part. If you do not use share, your agency name and address where you want checks mailed. A description of what the request is for. You can be semi-vague here, but not really. And then the amount of the full request that you're for that month. Oops, sorry about that. Once you've filled it in, hit mark as complete. And this is what you will see after. So once this is filled in, you'll see that there's a green check mark over here. So that means that you've completed that portion of your apply entry. Next, you'll click over here on cover letter to upload your cover letter. And so it's kind of helping you here. This task is optional only for $0 requests. It will remind you and apply that that's what is going on. You'll click on attach a file. We prefer it in a PDF format. I believe that's really the only one that it will give. I know in the workbook you can attach an Excel spreadsheet. So again, once you've uploaded your cover letter, you hit mark as complete, and you'll repeat all of these steps for all of your tasks. So this is showing a little half moon thing here, half circle, shows that you are working on it. It is not complete yet. And now we're at and this is what your cover letter task page looks like when it's completed. And this is the workbook task page. And this is what it looks like when it's completed. It's basically just uploading like it is for the cover letter. This is not optional. You turn this in every month, no matter what, even with $0 requests. And here's where you would put in your supporting documentation. All of the invoices and such. Now, when you have all of your check boxes marked, they're marked green, then you'll click here to mark, to submit your monthly reimbursement when all tasks are complete. And that's the end of my presentation. Again, we're going to try and save questions for after the presentation is complete. You can always contact me if you have any questions. Throughout the grant period, your liaison is your first point of contact. And if you have questions that they can't answer, I will certainly give it my best shot. Have a wonderful day and good luck with the grants.
Thank you, Jamie. Jamie, can you stop sharing? Or whoever is sharing, actually. Great, thanks. Hey, well, nice to see everybody this afternoon. I'm Nancy Shane. I'm the Director of Research for the Sentencing Commission and one of the liaisons. And I'm going to cover spending plans and data sharing today. So spending plans are due at the beginning of the grant and then quarterly thereafter. It's not a high stakes document, but it is something that helps you and helps us to plan for the future of your spending, and especially when you're thinking about possibly amending your grant. So amendments are pretty common, but they do take a little bit of time, and it's nice to have a little bit of a heads up. So this is something that just helps you see if you are spending your money as anticipated. There are basically two parts to a spending plan. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the spending plan summary, and on the right-hand side is the quarterly report. Everything that's in gray is something that is calculated, sort of summing up things. And so for the most part, information is drawn from the detailed page, and then it feeds into the summary page. So I'll show you quickly how that's done. This is an example of a detail page for the first quarter of the grant. So it shows what you're expecting to spend in July, August, and September. It has everything sort of laid out the same way you would on your worksheet for your reimbursement request, where it's referencing the paragraph in your scope of work and then listing what you expect to pay. And so you can see that it sums down in this example to $6,700. That shows up at the top right corner. And then it also shows on the first quarter line for the spending summary. So as we get close to about the halfway point for this grant, we will be checking to see whether grants are spending money as anticipated, because as you all know, none of the grants received as much money as they had wanted this year. And so we may try to recoup monies from grants that are not able to spend all their money, which happens, pretty frequently, and provide it to those who can't spend the money, just so we're using our money and our time as efficiently as possible. So that's where these documents are really helpful. There's some videos in the resources that show you how to go through this in more detail. But again, it's not high stakes. It's just meant to help us anticipate when we might want to amend grants. Okay, so all of you signed a data sharing agreement suggesting that you would provide information about who participated in your grant, and so that we can complete the evaluation that we are required to do in statute. There are 3 types of basically program activities that lead to different kinds of data, and I'll go through each of those. Whatever type of data you are submitting, whatever type of program that you have, or maybe it's a combination, the due date for that is October 1st, so a few months after the grant, at the same time as the final report. And we will be sharing later some information about a folder in SharePoint. SharePoint is just UNM's way of sending secure information, because as you're going to see, some of this information is really quite private. So we don't want to just send it over email. Okay, so the first primary, most common, and really the preferred type of data that we like to get is information about your justice-involved beneficiaries. There are a number of required fields. Some of them are more important than others, and I've highlighted them here. So the first and last names of the justice-involved beneficiaries, their date of birth, their beginning date of service, and also the case numbers for the cases that got them into your program, if that applies in your case. So if you have party ID, great. If you have arrest date, great. Gender, race, and ethnicity. But if your current system just has these 4 things, that is really good enough, and you won't have to change the system that you already use to collect beneficiary data. This is just an example table of what we do with that data. So this is from our latest report, and there's a few things to note. Well, I guess when we're talking about beneficiary data, there's sort of three kinds of outcomes that we're looking at. We're looking at compliance with the courts, meaning warrants. We're looking at recidivism, and also we're looking for those reference cases at the final disposition of the case. So this is an example table that looks at recidivism from before the person's entry into your program and after in equivalent time periods. And there's just a few things that I want to point out about this table. One is that you can see that we have combined grants. We're really evaluating the CRGA program overall. We're not evaluating individual programs. So we've just combined, we don't even give reference, we don't even say in here like which grants this data came from. We're just sort of categorizing grants based on the target population that they are serving and then combining all that data together. So you can see like at the first line for fiscal year 2023 grants, we had 2 grants that were serving at-risk populations. We had a total N of 157, and you can see the average number of criminal cases before they entered that at-risk program and the average number after. The second thing to observe about this grant or about this table or the data that we provide in general is that we track beneficiaries for 3 years. So we have been tracking beneficiaries in this report covering grants from fiscal year 2021, 2022, and 2023. So you only have to provide those names one time, but just know that we're going to be tracking those folks for 3 years. And then the final thing that I guess I wanted to note is just that just to reiterate that we're not providing any information about individual beneficiaries either. I mean, we would never present anything that that allowed anybody to identify who those individuals are, although we are collecting that information. Okay, so the second type of program and data that you might have is if you are using grant funds to hire someone or to provide incentives for people to stay in their position. So this most often has to do with things like a CJCC coordinator, perhaps law enforcement personnel, or attorneys. And we also track these folks for 3 years. What we are looking for is whether they stay in their position for which they receive the stipend or the salary for each of the next 3 years, or it's also kind of a measure of success if they maybe leave that position, but they stay in public service in New Mexico. So we also track that as well. So basically what you need to provide for these beneficiaries are their first and last name. We can usually track them with that. If you have an employee identification number, that's helpful. If you have the start date of their employment, that's helpful too, or their length of employment. And that generally means, like, say that you gave somebody a stipend and they resigned from the position within the grant year, we would certainly appreciate knowing that ahead of time. Okay, and finally, your grant might cover staff training. So this kind of grant or this kind of activity, all we really need for this is the name or topic and date of the training, the attendees' first and last names, and where they come from, what agency they come from. We don't track these guys for 3 years. We just all we really can do is just note how many individuals were trained in each of those areas. Again, we do the same thing as we did in other parts of the evaluation, is we divide that up by the type of training, like what target population is the training talking about, and we just list the agencies that were covered. So that is that final form of data sharing. I think in the interest of time, I'm just going to show you to end my presentation where you can go to find the resources for the grant that both Kiri and Jamie mentioned. So from our website, there is at the top, there's the list of the major pages for the website. Under crime reduction grants, there's program resources, and you can see there's some templates in there for the quarterly report, for the final report, for the spending plan. And there's also several videos, especially covering the financial aspects of the reimbursement requests. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and ask the entire panel to turn your cameras back on so that we can answer questions.
Great. Thank you, Nancy, for that. Thank you particularly for pointing out the resources there at the end. I'm not sure, Jamie Cook might have had to leave us. So if we have any questions that are directed to her, then we will note those down and get them back to you. Jeremy, do you want to MC us on the questions that people might have?
Yeah. So looks like during Kiri's presentation, Chris DeBolt asked, he said, "Hi, Kiri, wondering said that since the fiscal year 25 money extension ends on September 30th, how does that affect the final report?" And then he kind of followed up later saying, "If using fiscal year 25 money through the end of the extension period through September 30th and no fiscal year 26 funding until October, do you need a fiscal year 26 invoice reflecting $0 requested for that period as well?" So we'll just go through that.
This is very specific, and really is more for last fiscal year. But if you have a grant from last year that received an extension, you will have to submit another final report if your extension your extension continued into fiscal year 26. You'll have to submit a final report for fiscal year 25 and another for fiscal year 26. If there was any spending within a fiscal year, you will have to submit a final report for that year. As far as submitting $0 requests, okay, so for this grant project, they received a brief extension on last year's funding, and they also received funding for this year. Those are two different grants in our system. So we do need the monthly invoices from both. So I think that answers the question, as well as the quarterly reports from both.
Yeah, I don't think the deadline for the final report changes, right, Kiri? Even if there's an extension, it's still due October 1st. Is that right?
Yeah. That's correct. We don't have the ability to change that deadline since it is set by statute.
All right. Looks like Chris replied, said yes, thanks. Cool. So next, I believe this was during Jamie Cook's session, but maybe somebody else can answer it because I don't know if Jamie is here. Sarah Talley asked, the period of performance for their grant is 8/15/25 to 6/30/26. Would their first month RFR be due September 15th, 2025? Also, can they be paid via ACH?
So I can't answer the question of whether you can be paid via ACH. That will be a question for our finance team. But your first month's request for reimbursement would be due September 15th, 2025. Because your grant starts in August 15th, you'll have that period from August 15th to August 31st that you'll have to account for in that first monthly invoice.
Perfect. So Sarah, it looks like we will get back to you on the ACH question, but I hope that was satisfactory as well. Looks like Leah, pardon me for mispronouncing. Lorenzo asked Nancy, who do they get SharePoint access from?
They will get that from me.
Okay.
Yes, and not until close to the end of the grant.
Cool. So Roberto Huerito Jones asked, in regards to fiscal year 25, is there a time frame set for when reimbursements will be completed They say with DFA deadlines, they may need to possibly set up a due from, if not by the DFA deadline. I'm not, yeah.
So I'll take that. Yeah, thanks, Roberta. This is why Jamie couldn't stay with us. Jamie Cook couldn't stay with us. She and Amanda Armstrong, our CFO, are rapidly pushing all of those out the door. So I don't have a firm deadline, but Amanda, our CFO, is very aware that you all have your own DFA deadlines as well. And I wish I could give you a firm number, but I just know that that's what they've been doing the last few days, is pushing everything out the door, so DFA can approve and everyone can get their checks cut. If you want to contact Roberta, your liaison, I don't know whether Jamie Goldberg or Nancy or Kiri know offhand who you are, then we can follow up specifically with your grant and see if we can track some information and get that out to you separately, if that'll help. Is that, I see you shake your head, Nancy. Is that one of yours? Awesome. Great. Yeah, and that's part of what we've done since I took over as executive director, particularly in the last few months, as I've kind of learned more about the process, is there's a lot of hiccups on our end. I'll just be frank about it. And we are working to resolve those, hoping we can get better processes on our end to get the reimbursements out to you all in a more timely fashion for these new 19 grants that we have in the coming fiscal year. So, but thanks for your patience as we work through all these at the end of wrapping up last year's fiscal year. We will all be happy when those are out off our plates so we can just focus on the new grants. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, Douglas. Looks like there's another question from Angie Ortega. One more time, what does and does not need to be on the sign-in sheets if they are providing services? She asked that right just now, so I think anybody who knows can jump in.
Angie, are you talking about the reimbursement request or the data sharing at the end of the grant?
It says both.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm less familiar with what is required on the fiscal end. I don't think it's anything except first name and last name. But we'll double check on that. If you are talking about providing training, are you talking about training or things for justice involved beneficiaries?
Wait a second for Angie to reply. For clients they are serving.
Okay. Yeah. So information about the beneficiaries that we need are first name, last name, date of birth, the first date that they receive services from this grant, and any case numbers that are associated with the grant or with the program that you're providing. Is that clear, Angie? Yes. Well, if they have cases that are not adjudicated, we still need the case numbers. If they don't have any cases at all because you are serving an at-risk population, then there's no case numbers to provide. But yeah, if it's still an active case, we would still need the case numbers.
And I'll just add on that the reason the data is so important that Nancy talked about in her answers here and in her presentation at the end of our whole group is we have to evaluate the grants. It's required by statute. And that's what the Legislative Finance Committee looks at to determine whether this grants program is effective. So the more and better data that you all can provide, then the better analysis that Nancy and her team can do, and the more easy it is to justify continuation of these grants to the Legislative Finance Committee. So I know everyone is stressed and everyone's got lots on their plate. The idea of doing one more reporting requirement probably causes heads to ache, but it is very important on our end for the future of not just your program, individual program, but for all the programs that are being supported by these grants. So thank you for that.
Alrighty, are there any more questions? Please feel free to put any more questions in the chat. We'll wait just a little bit longer, and then if there's not any more questions, we will wrap things up here. So we'll just wait for if anybody has any more questions. Please feel free. Doesn't really seem like anybody is going to be asking anything here. So we want to wrap up. Are there any closing remarks we wanted to put together?
Just again, for anyone who is still on, thank you. Congratulations on your grants. We're looking forward to working with you with our new grants for this year, seeing what develops in projects, particularly the new projects. It's always fun to see some new projects be funded and see what happens. And we also love seeing people build on the success of old projects. So again, thanks for being here. This will be posted online. Nancy showed you the resources page. So this video will be posted. Other supporting materials are already there and they will be updated as well. And slides will be posted. Reach out to any of us if you have any questions along the way. And thanks. And Jeremy, thanks for hosting us.
Very much so. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording here.